Masechet Kiddushin Daf Nun Tet, a new perek, the third perek of the Masechet. Ha'omer lachavero sevek kadesh li isha pelonit, v'alav v'kiddusha le'asmo mikudeshet lasheni. A person tells his friend, would you do me a favor, be my shaliach, and go deliver Kiddushin to this particular woman on my behalf. And the shaliach, instead of doing his messengership on behalf of the sender, he goes and he gives his own money to this same woman, and says, Aret mikudeshet li. So this is not a very nice thing of the messenger to do, but nevertheless, once he does it, she is mikudeshet to the messenger. That's the second guy, not to the sender. וכן האומר לאישה הרי את מקודשת לי לאחר 30 יום, ובאחר בקידושה בתוך 30 יום, מקודשת לשני, בת ישראל לכהן, תאכל בתרומה. And you have a similar end result if a man A tells a woman, you should be mikudeshet to me in 30 days. I'm giving you this item now, but the Kiddushin will take effect in 30 days. It's not a good idea, because then in the meantime, someone else comes along within the 30 days and gives her Kiddushin, so she is not yet mikudeshet to the first one, and therefore the second one takes effect, and the first guy loses out. And the Kiddushin to the second guy in both of these cases is 100% Kiddushin. So much so that if she is a Bat Yisrael and the second guy, the messenger here, or the guy who comes after, before the 30 days, the second guy, if he's a Kohen, she can eat terumah. In other words, the first guy is totally out and she's 100% married to the second guy without any doubt. Now, next case, Mershav ulachar sheloshim yom. Man A tells her, you are mikudeshet to me from now and after 30 days. Now, this is a ambiguous statement. We don't know what he means by this. Now, is it now or 30 days? So we end up having a doubt. And if in the meantime, now, if nothing happens before 30 days, so then whatever he meant, either now or 30 days, the Kiddushin will be valid. But if someone comes within 30 days, now we don't know what to do. We don't know if he really meant achshav, and so she's mikudeshet to the first guy, or if he really meant 30 days, and in that case she's married to the second guy. And so therefore, the Kiddushin from both the first and the second is safek, so she has to be stringent, all the stringencies of being married both to the first and both to the possibility of being married to the second. Therefore, Bat Yisrael Kohen or Bat Kohen Israel lo tochal bitruma. If she is a Bat Yisrael and one of these guys is a Kohen, she cannot eat teruma because she doesn't know if she's really married to them. Or if she's a Bat Kohen and now one of these guys is a Yisrael, she also cannot eat teruma because maybe she is married to one of them. And now, even though she's a Bat Kohen in her father's house, she could eat teruma. But if she's married to one of them, now it's a Yisrael, so she can't. On the other hand, maybe she is not married to one of them, or either of them, or one of them. But we don't, if one of them is a Kohen, one of them's not. So no matter what the situation is, she will not be able to eat teruma because she is in a doubtful case. Okay, Gemara. Ha'omer lechavero sevek kadesh. Tana ma she'asa asui ela shenahag bo minhag rama'ut. In the first case, where the messenger preempts and says, well, you know what? I kind of like this woman for myself, and then doesn't do what the sender asked him to do, but takes the woman for himself. And what he did, his act is a legal act, and the second guy, this messenger, is married to her. But what he did is a deceitful act, and it's not a very nice thing to do. And in fact, even from the wording of the Mishnah, it says vehalach, where he went and did it to himself. In other words, he did something with a purposeful intent that is bad intent. That's the extra vehalach. He goes and he didn't do what he was supposed to. Instead, he acted in this deceitful way. So this is not a proper way to act. Even though he did it, so legally it is an act of Kiddushin. Now, just a language question. How come in our Mishnah, it says someone who tells his friend? Now, he's appointing his friend as a messenger, but he uses the word friend. friend, whereas in Mishnah that we learned in the previous chapter, this is regarding someone who asks his shaliach. It says here, it calls him agent, not friend. And this is the case where he says, go and do Kiddushin for me in this place. And then he goes and finds her in a different place and does Kiddushin in a different place. And we said that's not valid because maybe he wanted it specifically to be in this place. Okay, so why use different language? In our Mishnah, we called him chaver, and over there you called him shaliach. And the answer is hacha rebuta kamashmalan, hatam rebuta kamashmalan. Hacha rebuta kamashmalan ditana shilucho havamina shilucho hu dehave ramai tesamcha daate sabar abad lishlichuti aval chavero dela samcha daate emala have leheve ramai. So we're learning in a novel law in each case, both here and there. We'll start with here. If it said it's shilucho, in this case that the person's an agent, then I would have thought only if it's an agent, that's when we call him deceitful. Because when you appoint someone specifically as an agent, like a hired professional, so then the sender is relying on him that you're going to do exactly what I say, and then you don't go do what I say. Instead, you take this woman for yourself. So there we would call him a ramai, because he was specifically appointed just as a shaliach. But I might have thought that if it's a friend, even though he's appointing him, but he is appointing him as a shaliach, but he's also a friend, and so since he's a friend, so he's not relying on him as much like a professional agent, but rather kind of like a favor. So I might say maybe we should not call him a deceitful scoundrel, because he would just did it as he was just going as a friend in the first place. So therefore, it uses chaver here to teach me not so. Even if a guy is not doing it as a professional, but rather only as a friend, and he goes and takes it for himself, that's also called a scoundrel. Not a nice thing to do. And also there, and in the other case in the previous perek, if it said a friend, and we say it's not, the Kiddushin is not valid, I would have thought maybe with a friend, where you say, listen, can you do me a favor and go to this such and such a place and do Kiddushin? So there, when the friend goes to a faraway place, the Kiddushin is not valid, because the sender figures he's not going to bother himself to go all the way there, and I'm not assuming he will, and I'm not sending him to a faraway place. So I only sent him to go to the close place because he's acting as a friend, and then he goes and went to the other place. I never authorized him to go to the farther place, and so that would make sense why when it's a chaver, the Kiddushin is not valid. But if I get someone to be a shaliach specifically, to do it, go do it professionally, not simply as a favor, so then we would assume that when he says, go to this place, he's giving him a suggestion. Listen, she's probably in this place, so go there. But the sender expects the messenger even to go far away, because he has to do it. It's not just doing it as a favor. I'm appointing you to be a specific shaliach. Don't do anything else. Go concentrate on this. And so in that case, maybe the Kiddushin would be valid, because the sender expects the messenger even to go far away, and therefore kamashmal. And that's why in that case, it wants to teach us this novel law that even if you say to call him a messenger and send him, and where you might think to expect that he can go to a faraway place, no, even there he means it should be, I want it only in this place and not in the other place, and the Kiddushin is not valid. Now we have a couple of stories. Ravin Chasida Azil Kiddushele Liiteta Libre Kiddushala Nafshe. Ravin Chasida, okay, we know he's a Hasid. He goes and did Kiddushin on behalf of his son. So that's what he was going to do. But in the end, he got there. His son is at home, and he's the father's acting as a messenger for his son. And in the end, he does Kiddushin to the woman for himself. He takes this bride for himself instead of for his son. So, how could Ravin, the Chassid, do that? Even though it's valid legally, but still, this is a deceitful thing to do to his own son, and he's a Chassid. And so, why did he do that? The answer is La Yavu Ani. He tried to give it to marry off his son to this woman, but the family did not agree. No, we don't want your son. If it was you, we would agree, right? You're a great chassid. We would marry. She would agree to marry the father, but she didn't agree to marry the son. Okay, still the father should have went and told let the son know. Is that very nice? You come home and say, "Oh, listen, I took her for myself." He should wait. Come home, listen, son. She doesn't want to marry you. Do you mind if I marry her? You should go tell him first. And the answer, why didn't he do that? He says, listen, by time I go home and tell my son, listen, she doesn't want you, mind if I marry her? And then she goes back. In the meantime, she's going to go get married to someone else. She was, she was well sought after. She had a lot of suitors, and he didn't want to wait. Otherwise, he would lose her. So that's why he acted in that way. Rabba bar Hana. Now a similar case, but now this time regarding land. Rav, the great first generation Amorah, he says, could you do me a favor? You're going to this place. Can you buy land for me? Here's $1,000. Buy that land on my behalf. Rav goes and buys it for himself. I mean, this is not a nice thing to do at all. It's like if you hire a lawyer, can you go close this deal for me? And the lawyer goes and takes the deal for himself. He steals your idea, steals the land. I mean, this is not very good. How could Rav do such a thing? Don't we have a braita that, okay, even if it's a valid legally, still, this is a deceitful thing to do. And the answer, similar to the answer in the previous one, is that the land was in a valley, and there were some of these violent men there. And these violent men, they respected Rav, and they were willing to sell him the land, but they did not give respect to Rabba bar Hana, and they would not have sold him the land. So Rav, when he tried, he says, "Listen, okay, buy it on behalf of Rabba bar Hana." They said, "Who is that?" We're not selling it to him. But Rav, they did. Okay, now Rav, out of courtesy, should have gone back and said, listen, they don't want to sell it to you, but they're willing to sell it to me. Do you mind if I take the deal? I mean, ask permission first. Why didn't you do that? Because here also, Rav figured that by the time he goes and tells Rabba bar Hana and comes back, the land will go to someone else and they'll lose out on this good deal. Rav Gidel, next story. Rav Gidel, he was checking out a certain piece of land. Right, he already did all the work to see it's good land and whatever, and so he was ready to buy it. In the meantime, Rabbi Abba swooped in and bought it right under his nose. Not nice. Azal Rav Gidel kableh l'Rabbi Zera. So Rav Gidel, who his intention was to buy the land, he went and submitted a complaint to Rabbi Zera against Rabbi Abba. Azal Rabbi Zera ukbaleh leRabbi Yitzchak napacha. Rabbi Zera didn't want to deal with it himself, so he sent it up another level, sent the complaint to Rabbi Yitzchak napacha. Amar lehamten ad she'aleh asenu laregel. Rabbi Yitzchak napacha said, let's wait until Rabbi Abba is the one that swooped in and did this mean thing. Let's wait till he comes to us on the holiday. Apparently, the students and colleagues and students would come to the rabbi during the holiday to come visit. And to learn, maybe before the holiday, to study the halachot. And so let's wait till he comes. I don't want to, intervene just yet. And so they wait. Now you understand why he wanted to wait. He wanted to ask him an indirect question, kind of like Natan HaNavi asks David HaMelech. So Rabbi Yitzchak Napacha says to Rabbi Abba, if you had a poor person and he's trying to get a loaf of bread, poor person, and all he has maybe is 1 penny. He's trying to get a loaf of bread, and someone else comes and grabs it from him. What would you say about that person who grabs it? So Rabbi Abba says, that's a terrible, wicked person. You just grab a loaf from a poor person. And so Rabbi Yitzchak says, Ata ha'ish, you did that. Why did you do that? Why did you steal the land from Rav Gidel? He was trying to buy it. Rabbi Abba says, I didn't know. I went, I bought it. I didn't know that Rav Gidel already was speculating on it and had plans to buy it. If I knew, I would not have bought it. So he apologized. Okay, hashtaname netebe nehale mor. So Rabbi Yitzchak Napachas says, okay, well then give it to him now. Right? You should sell it to him. אמר לה, זבונה למזבנין לה, דארעה קמייתא היא, ולמסמנה מילתה, היא באה במתנה נשקלה. So Rabbi Abba said, listen, I'm not going to sell it to Rabbi Rav Gidel because this is the first land I ever bought, and it's not good luck to sell the first land that you buy. So I'm not going to sell it to him, but I'm happy to give it to him as a gift. I did not realize that he was checking it out at the time that I bought it, and he has totally right, and so I don't want to take it from him. I'll give it to him as a gift. I just don't want to sell it because it's bad luck. So it seems that Rabbi Abba is going above and beyond. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't know, and he's happy to give it away for free. However, Rav Gidel anachit la tichtiv soneh matanot yichiyeh. Rav Gidel, who complained in the first place, he would not accept it as a gift because the pasuk says, "He who hates gifts shall live." It's not good to take a gift. Then you owe the person something. He wants to buy it outright. So Rav Gidel insists on buying and paying for it. Rabbi Abba insists on giving it away, and they could not agree. Rabbi Abba lanachitla mishum dehapich ba Rav Gidel. Rabbi Abba would not go and use the land. He would not grow things on the land because Rav Gidel first wanted to acquire it, and so Rabbi Abba says he has the right to it, and I want to give it to him. I will not use it. Rav Gidel would also not use it because he refused to accept the gift. He would only pay for it. So neither sage used it, and it ended up being empty, and it was called the land of the sages. So we see from there, it's a fight, but each one is trying to be more giving to the other, and so their fight was kind of like when you go to a restaurant and no, I insist on paying, and the other says I insist on paying, and they keep fighting, and the waiter is like waiting there, right? And nobody will let the other give a credit card. And so here it shows how the great generosity of each of the rabbis, and that they wanted to make sure that only the other one had it and would not take it for themselves. It was just a misunderstanding to begin with. Okay, so Mishnah goes on to say, if a second case, if a man says, be mikudeshet to me after 30 days, and another guy swoops in before 30 days, she's married to the second guy. Lo ba acher v'kiddesha b'toch sheloshim mahu. Now what if nobody comes within the 30 days? So then, what will be the law? Rav Shmuel damrat havayu mikudeshet v'afal pi shenit'akelu hamaot. So Rav Shmuel agree that she's mikudeshet to that first guy, even though the original coins that she gave him are already used up. He gave her $100 on day one, and say, here, be mikudeshet to me with this $100 in 30 days. Now, you might have thought it only takes effect in 30 days, so maybe she has to have the money there on that 30th day. But what if she uses it up? So Rav and Shmuel says it's still okay. Even though she used it up, whatever she did with it, still the Kiddushin takes effect in 30 days. Why? My ta'ama hanezuzeh. The reason it works is because this money is not like a loan and is also not like a deposit. If it was either a loan or a deposit, the Kiddushin would not be good. So this is not like either of them, and therefore it is good. How is it different? Lepikadon lo damo pikadon b'shut hademara kamit akele v'hane b'shut hadida kamit akele. If it's a pikadon that the man says, here, can you hold on to this $100 for me? That is Kiddushin, right? He just says, can you watch it for me? And afterwards, he comes back 30 days later and says, you know what, that $100 that you had, let it be for Kiddushin. If she loses it in the meantime, or uses it, or it got stolen, or whatever, and it's not around, the Kiddushin is not good, because Pikadon is in the owner's possession, right? That's the man. And if it gets lost or used when she is holding on to it, so the owner, that's the owner's property. And so therefore, when he comes in 30 days and says, be mikudeshet with that money that I had given you, yeah, but it was always his, and now there's nothing, if it's gone, there's nothing left to give to her, so there's no Kiddushin because she's not taking anything that she never got the money. The money was given to her, it wasn't hers at that point, and now it's gone at this time. Whereas if he gives it to her as Kiddushin on day one, so it's hers, right? She received money. And that's fine. As long as she received money, it can take effect afterwards. That's totally good. And lemilveh nami ladamu. Milveh l'hotzah nitna hane b'torat kiddushin yahabinhu nihala. It's also not a loan. If the guy gives her a loan, here's $100 as a loan. So that is given to her for her to use for other purposes. She wants a loan so she can pay her electric bill. Okay, so she already used it up and paid her electric bill. And now when he comes later and says, oh, that loan, that money that I gave you as the loan, let it be for Kiddushin. That's not valid. Because that money was given to her not as Kiddushin, but to pay the electric bill. She already used it up for that, so she's not receiving anything now. And that's why it's not good if it's a milveh. But in this case, since he gave it to her in the first place for Kiddushin, good. So until she received Kiddushin money, she can use it however she wants, even though it will take effect only after 30 days. That's perfectly valid. Now another question. Let's say, same case, the guy comes and gives her $100 on day one. He says this will take effect in 30 days. She says, okay, she receives the money. Yes, I agree to the Kiddushin. But they're not mikudeshet yet until day 30. In the meantime, she changes her mind and says, you know what, I changed my mind, I retract, I don't want to be married anymore. Now, they're not married yet, so is she allowed to retract? But on the other hand, she already agreed. So this is a machloket. Rabbi Yochanan amar chozeret, ate dibur batel dibur. Resh Lakish amar ena chozeret, la ate dibur batel dibur. Rabbi Yochanan says she can change her mind. One statement can undo another statement. She said yes, a verbal agreement, and so a verbal retraction works, right? Verbal and verbal. Each one, it says equal weight, so yes, she can retract. Resh Lakish says no, she cannot change her mind anymore. A second statement cannot nullify your first statement. You already agreed to it, that's it. You registered your agreement, and you can't undo it just with a second statement. Now we're going to have some challenges in both ways. This challenge is from a Mishnah in Masechet Terumot, that if someone sends someone else to go and separate terumah from my grain over there, and so the guy is going, and in the meantime the owner cancels and says, no, what? I don't want you to do it. And now if before the guy separated the terumah, before the messenger separated the terumah, the owner already canceled it, then and then he goes anyway and separates it, the separation is no good. So you see, this fits well with Rabbi Yochanan that says you can change your mind. The owner here said, be my shaliach to take terumah, and then he says, don't be my shaliach to take terumah, and sure enough, if he goes and does it, it's invalid. So that makes sense according to Rabbi Yochanan. But according to Resh Lakish, you just said that dibur, right here, this is also one statement after another. And yet, what the second statement does undo the other. Resh Lakish, you just said that a second statement cannot undo a first statement, but here it does. How can you explain it? Resh Lakish explains, I agree. If it's just one statement and then another statement, I would agree. A second statement can undo a first statement, and that would be the case regarding terumah. Kiddushin is different. What I meant to say up here was that a second statement cannot undo a first statement that's accompanied with an act. When he gives her Kiddushin money on day one, he's giving her money. She accepts the money. This is a legal act, and she also agrees to it, says, yes, I'll agree to marry you. So an act plus a statement at first cannot be nullified by a mere statement after. That's what Resh Lakish was saying. That's his rule. Okay, fine. Now a second challenge to Resh Lakish. Itibeh. Hasholech get li'ishto v'gi'a b'shaliach, או ששלח אחריו שליח ואמר לו, גט שנתתי לך בטל הוא, הרי זה בטל. והנתינת גט ליד שליח דכי נתינת מעות ליד אישה, דמה, וקטני, הרי זה בטל. Yochanan says, fine, I'm going to ask you a question based on this here, a new formulation, because this is equivalent to a case where a man sends a get to his wife with a messenger. Then he goes to the messenger and stops him and says, no, I don't want you to do it. Or he sends a second messenger after the first messenger and tells the messenger, listen, the get that I gave you, I'm canceling. So the law is, it is in fact canceled. The husband has a right to cancel the get that he already sent. Now in this case, the husband giving the get to the messenger is an act. He's telling here, he's actually giving it to him. That's equivalent to giving money to the woman. Where that's also, you said that's an action, and so you can't do an action with a word. Yet over here, in this case, when the husband goes after the shaliach and say, no, I cancel, that's just a word. And so you see a verbal statement here has the power to undo an act. And Resh Lakish, you just said that a statement cannot undo an act, like an act of giving money with Kiddushin. So how are you going to answer that? Resh Lakish could explain that as long as the get does not get to her hands, it is in fact only words. When the husband gives the get to the agent, that's not a legal act. That doesn't effectuate anything. Rather, it's just words. Here, I authorize you to take this get and give it to her. So if he catches up with the agent and says, I don't want you to do it, it's mere words that can in fact undo words. That's totally fine. It's not the same as a man giving a wife money, a bride money, and doing Kiddushin, where it's words, and that's an actual action, though that money that he gives her will effectuate Kiddushin. In that case, you cannot undo it. In this case, you can. Perfectly good answer. Resh Lakish to Rabbi Yochanan. Now Resh Lakish is going to have a challenge to Rabbi Yochanan. Kol hakelim yordin lidei tumatan b'machshava, ve'en olin midei tumatan ela b'shinui ma'aseh. Any vessels can become susceptible to tum'ah with thought. It works as follows. Only a vessel that's a complete usable vessel that's done with manufacturing can become tameh. If you have a pot or something that he's still working on, he's still forming it, he's still painting it, he's still shellacking it, it's not finished yet, then it does not become tameh. Now, what's the final step when it becomes tameh? It's when the artisan who's making it decides, you know what, it's done, right? I put my last paint on it, and he decides in his mind it's done. At that point, it goes from being unfinished to finished, and now it can receive tum'ah. So, something becomes tameh or susceptible to tum'ah with just thought, yet it cannot be removed from that status unless you actually do something. Let's say he decides, you know what, in his mind, I'm not done yet. I want to put some more stripes on it. Well, that's not enough. By just thinking that, it still remains susceptible to tum'ah until he actually does something, starts actually painting it, does something to either make it unusable or now unfinished with an act in order to make it no longer susceptible to tum'ah. Or if it actually did become tameh, it remains tameh unless he does something to it to make it unusable. So now it's no longer a finished product, and then the tum'ah gets removed. And so what we have here is ma'aseh mosi miyad ma'aseh o miyad machshava. Machshava en mosi lo miyad ma'aseh ve'lo miyad machshava. An action, meaning to changing the vessel, can undo both an action and a thought. Even though you thought that it's finished, if you work on it again, that will undo that thought. But just a thought does not undo not an action and not a thought. Meaning, if the artisan had a thought, you know what, I think I'm done with it, then that's it. Now it's susceptible to tum'ah, and a mere thought I want to work on it more, cannot undo it. That's a good proof for Resh Lakish. A challenge to the Rabbi Yochanan, Bishlama miyad ma'aseh lama pekad ela ate dibur batel ma'aseh elim yad machshava miha tapek. And so that's why Resh Lakish asks. And that makes sense that a machshava, a thought, should not be able to undo an action because words cannot undo an action, but an action should be able to undo an action according to you, Rabbi Yochanan. So how are you going to explain this? And the answer is Shane Machshava de Tum'ah Dechi Maaseh Dameh Uchtera Papa. Yochanan can answer that when it comes to laws of Tum'ah, thought does count, and thought is like an action. And we see that from the statement of Rav Papa. The Rav Papa Dameh, Ketiv ki hiten vekarinan ki yutan. Ha kesad. Pasuk in Vayikra says ki yutan mayim. If water is placed upon grain and then a dead sheretz falls on it, it becomes impure. So we learn from there that if you have, fruit or grain or anything that is just grows and did not become wet yet, then it's not susceptible to tum'ah. And even if it touches a dead sheretz, it will not become tameh until it gets wet. Becoming wet makes it susceptible to tum'ah. So now this word is curious because we read it ki yutan, but the same consonants can be read yiten, right? And as an active verb or as a passive verb. So why? Ki yutan dumyad ki yiten, ma yiten denichale, af yutan denichale. Oh, if water goes on it by itself, if it rains or a sprinkler goes on and it gets wet, passively, it only becomes susceptible if it's similar to ki yiten, someone doing it actively. If it's done actively, I went and pour water on it, that means I want it to get wet. And so too, even if water somehow gets poured on it, only if I wanted that to happen. So if I have some grain or something outside and I don't want it to get wet and it rains on it, that does not become susceptible to tumah because I didn't want it. Only if I want it to happen. So what do you see from here? That according to the Papa, thought is very significant when it comes to tum'ah. It's so significant that in that case it's like a ma'aseh, and that's the reason why thought alone, that when I say I'm finished with this vessel, that alone is like an action and therefore cannot be done with just thought if I say, you know what, I'm not finished with the vessel. And so Rabbi Yochanan answers it that way. Okay, all that is inconclusive in either direction, but now we have an entirely second version of that whole conversation between Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish. Rav Zivid matne lehashmatata aha v'chen hi shenatna רשות לשלוחה לקדשה, והלכה היא וקידשה את עצמה, אם שלה קדמו קידושיה קידושין, ואם של שילוחה קדמו, אין קידושיה קידושין. Rav Zavid says that this machloket and conversation between Resh Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan is actually on a later Mishnah that teaches if a woman gives permission to a messenger to go receive Kiddushin on her behalf from Mr. A, right? She tells someone, go get Kiddushin from Mr. A, right? I authorize you. In the meantime, while they're on the way, she goes and she receives Kiddushin from Mr. B. Now, what happens? Well, it depends on the order of events. If her messenger receives the Kiddushin first, then she is married to Mr. A. But if she goes, her Kiddushin, the woman who sends it first, if she goes and receives Kiddushin from Mr. B first, then she is not married to Mr. A, but rather to Mr. B. Now, we discussed this Mishnah. Lo kiddushat asma bechazra ba mahu. Okay, forget the complication of she going and receiving Kiddushin for herself. Let's say, simple case, she sends a messenger to receive Kiddushin from Mr. A. And then she changes her mind. And then what's the law? Is she married? If she changes her mind before it's received, mahu. Rabbi Yochanan amar chozeret, Resh Lakish amar ena chozeret. Rabbi Yochanan amar chozeret ater dibur mater dibur, Resh Lakish amar ena chozeret, la ater dibur mater dibur. Rabbi Yochanan says, yes, she can change her mind. Resh Lakish says she's not. Rabbi Yochanan says she can change her mind because she only authorized this by word. So a second word can come and undo the first word. Resh Lakish, however, says no, she can't change her mind. She already agreed. And when she appointed this messenger to receive the Kiddushin, and so she gave her word, and that's it. A second word cannot undo the first word. Now, in this version, you see, it's going to be something different because here it's from the woman's side, and she did not give this agent anything. She didn't give the agent money or anything. This is different from the first version of this whole conversation, whereas the man who gives Kiddushin to a woman, and that's an action. So we won't be able to say over here for Resh Lakish that a word can't undo an action. That's what Resh Lakish meant. Over here, Resh Lakish means as he says it. A word cannot undo a word. Okay, so now let's go through the exercise. And here we will come to a conclusive resolution. So back to the Mishnah in Masechet Terumot. If someone says, "Go ahead and take separate terumah on my behalf," and so the guy goes, and in the meantime, the sender cancels it. If the terumah was not separated yet, then the terumah is no good. So you see here that a second word can undo a first word. Challenge to Resh Lakish. But says, no, here we're talking about a case where the owner, not only did he cancel it with a word, he actually ran ahead. He separated the terumah himself from his pile. And there, it's an action, right? That shows for sure. By doing it himself, he obviously doesn't want the agent to do it. That's what it's talking about. And an action can undo a word. But you're right, if it was only a word, then it wouldn't be able to. All right, iti beresh Lakish, we turn the tables. Beresh Lakish can ask Rabbi Yochanan, kol hakem yudin lidet tumatan machshava, ve'en odim mitumatan ela b'shinui maaseh. Maaseh mosi miyad maaseh, u'miyad machshava. Machshava ena mosi'a, lo miyad maaseh, ve'lo miyad machshava. This is the same as before. You have this vessel that you're working on, and it becomes susceptible to tumah by deciding that it's finished. That's just a thought, but it cannot undo that status unless you actually do something to it. So we see here that action, doing something to it, can undo action or thought, but thought by itself cannot undo neither an action nor thought. I understand that action cannot undo, that thought cannot undo action, but action should be able to undo action. So, and that's, but it doesn't here. So Resh Lakish says it's good for me. But according to the Rabbi Yochanan, why don't you say that a thought can undo a thought? Amar le shane machshava de tum'ah dechi maaseh damech de papa. So Rabbi Yochanan answers, when it comes to tum'ah, thought is like an action. As Rav Papa taught, Rav Papa rameh ketib ki yiten v'kadenan ki yutan. HaKesad ki yutan dumya de yiten ma'iten de nichale af yutan name de nichale. By comparing yutan to yiten, Rav Papa derives that a thought is like an action, that even an action of produce getting wet is not considered making it susceptible to tumah unless I have a thought that I wanted it to get wet. So you see that thought is as important an action when it comes to tumah. So this is an exceptional case, and you can't learn from here to these other cases. And finally, Rabbi Yochanan turns the tables once again against Resh Lakish and asks, "Hasholech get li'ishto v'higia b'shaliach, o sheshalach acharav shaliach v'omer lo, get shenatati lecha batel hu harei ze batel, tiyubta Resh Lakish tiyubta." If a man sends a get to his wife and then he changes his mind and he stops the shaliach, or he sends another shaliach to catch up with the first shaliach and says that the get that I sent is canceled, it is in fact canceled. So you see that a second word can undo a first word. That's good for Rabbi Yochanan, and it's a conclusive refutation of Resh Lakish. So there we go. In this version, Resh Lakish is in fact refuted. See, in the first version, also, we had to reinterpret Resh Lakish that he would say a word itself can undo a word just can't undo a word and an action, right? So really, in both, according to both versions, a word can undo a word, and so that's what we conclude. So we followed Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, even in the first case. And even though in that case, where you might say that her retraction after within the 30 days should not be good, because we should consider him giving her money like an action, and just a word cannot undo an action. Even in that case, we follow the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that she can undo it, right? We don't consider that action to be significant by itself, and a word can undo a word. So halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, words can undo words. Good. Now, one last clarification here. we have two rules here. The halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan on the one hand, but we also have another rule. The halacha is like Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman seems to say something different. The question was, let's say a husband gives a get to an agent, and then he ends up canceling the agent before he gets there. Now that get, can he use it again with the same wife? No, he wants to change his mind again, and he wants to give it. Can he use the same get, or is it considered cancelled? Rav Nachman Amar Chozer Mekadesh Bo. Rav Sheshat Amar Eno Chozer Mekadesh Bo. V'kaim Balan Hilchata Kivated Rav Nachman. Man says you can use it again. Rav Sheshet says no, you cannot use it again. It's cancelled. And we say halacha is like Rav Nachman, which means that when he sends the second get, which means that according to Rav Nachman, it's not cancelled, even though he told the shaliach to stop, but he can use the get again. So you see that the second statement does not undo the first, and there's a challenge to Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan, who says that a second statement can cancel a first, according to that, the entire get should be cancelled, nullified, and should not be usable again. So how do we explain this contradiction? And we give a simple answer. Mitzvat get la batele. It's true. In this case, he canceled the messenger. Yes, that he can do. And Rabbi Yochanan agrees, says, yeah, you can undo a message. I told you to do it. That's a word. Now I told you don't deliver it. So that's another word, and a word can undo a word. But that's only canceling the agency. It's not canceling the get itself and not nullifying the get. That never happened, and so therefore it can be used again. Rav Nachman very well can agree with Rabbi Yochanan that the agency is cancelled, but the get is still usable because he never did intend to or did cancel the get. We now go on and explain the next case in the Mishnah, Mikudeshet Lashani. If a husband says, here is the money from now, and you'll be Mikudeshet to me in 30 days. So in 30 days, I'll be Mikudeshet, nothing happens in between. But if someone else comes and swoops in and does Kiddushin within the 30 days, then she's Mikudeshet to that second guy who swoops in. Amar Rav Mikudeshet Lashani le'olam. Rav said that Kiddushin to the other guy is forever, which makes sense. Ushmel Amar Mikudeshet Lashani ad Shiloshim Yom. Shloshim Yom Pakei Kiddushay Sheni v'Gamrei Kiddushay Rishon. Shmuel says something curious, that the marriage to the second guy only lasts until the 30th day, but at the point of the 30th day, the marriage to the second guy goes away, and she finishes the marriage to the first guy. He said the first guy gave her Kiddushin first and said it'll take effect in 30 days. And then, so once the 30 days comes, that comes true, and the second guy somehow goes away. Now, how does that work exactly? If she has full Kiddushin to the second guy, how does it all of a sudden just disappear? Right? What's the mechanism? Just because the 30 days came? Yeah, but she wasn't married to the first guy that whole time, so she can't just go away. She remains married to the first to Sheni forever. Right? There's no mechanism for it to go away. How can you explain Shemuel here? Amar Rav Yosef Mor Aresha Matni La V'Kashia Le Rav Yudah Sefa Matni La V'Laka Kashia Le. Rav Yosef, I have a solution. See, you're applying this machloket Rav and Shemuel to that case of the Mishnah, but Rav Yehuda applies it to the last case of the Mishnah. And then it makes more sense. What was the last case? When he says Machshav ul achar yom v'chule. The husband says the man says to the woman, you are mikudeshet to me from now and after 30 days, which makes no sense. We don't really know what he means. In that case, it makes sense to have a machloket. And the Mishnah said, Mikudeshet ve'ena mikudeshet, safek. Amara mikudeshet ve'ena mikudeshet le'olam. She'll be in this case of in the state of safek forever. So I have to receive a get from both of them. So because it's never going to be resolved, we don't know if he meant from now or if he meant in 30 days. If he meant from now, she'll be married to the first guy. If she meant after 30 days and someone else swoops in, she'll be married to the second guy. But we don't know what Me'achshav ulachar shloshim yom means. Shemuel amar mikudeshet ve'ena mikudeshet ela shloshim yom. Lachar shloshim yom pakei kiddushay sheni ve'gamrei kiddushay rishon. Shemuel, however, says this state of being uncertain only lasts until the 30th day. Once the 30th day comes, then the marriage to the second guy goes away, and she is married to the first. Now we can explain this much better for this scenario. Rav wasn't sure when he says now until for 30 days. Is this a condition that meaning you are married to me from now as long as I don't change my mind within 30 days? I'm giving myself a 30-day return policy. I changed my mind, but I want the Kiddushin to happen from now. Either he meant that, or he was changing his mind and saying, I want you to get married now. No, forget it, 30 days. Now, since Rav is not sure what he meant by that, if it's the Tanai, and he didn't change his mind, so then it would be married from the first day, she's married to man one. If he changed his mind, man one changed his mind and said, no, I don't want 30, I really want 30 days. Then the second guy who comes and swoops in would be the guy who wins her, and she's married to the second guy. But we don't know, and it doesn't get resolved after 30 days. We don't know forever what he meant, so she remains in a state of limbo forever. However, Shemuel said, Peshita le titana'a havai. He understood this as a condition, simply as a condition, and therefore it's a condition. So he says, from now, if I don't change my mind in 30 days. Now, we don't know if he's going to change his mind or not within 30 days. Therefore, when the second guy swoops in and gives her Kiddushin, so maybe she's married to the second guy because the first guy will change his mind, or maybe not. Maybe he won't change his mind and she is married to the second guy. We don't know. But once 30 days comes, and he doesn't change his mind, then retroactively, the first guy's Kiddushin is Kiddushin, and now she's no longer in the Safek. She is only married to the first guy. So you see, Shemuel's opinion makes perfect sense. Good. Now, this machlok between Rav and Shemuel happens to line up perfectly with a machloket between two Tanaim. Detanya mehayom ulachar mita get ve'eno get bechachamim Rabbi omer kaze get. If a husband says to his wife, here is a get, it applies from now and after death. Now, what does that mean? Is it now or is it after death? So, according to Chachamim, it's both a get and not a get. It's a safek get, and so all the chumrot that you'll have to have with it, in terms of yibum and chalitza and all that, will apply. We consider it that it is a get, and we also have to assume that it's not a get. So she'll have to get chalitza, for example, in such a case. Rabbi, however, says it's a good get. It's totally fine, right? And what he meant by this is that I want this to be a get from now, and once I die, it should retroactively work from now, right? Mehayom el chad mita. I don't want to be divorced from you right now because I'm still alive. But if I should die, then retroactively it will be a divorce because you can't give a get after death. And so Rabbi says it's perfectly a good get. And so you see that Rav matches up with Chachamim, that it's a safek forever. And Shemuel matches up with Rabbi, that we consider this a condition. And once the person dies, and it is retroactively a get. And so too, once a person, after 30 days, and he didn't change his mind, then retroactively the Kiddushin is valid. And so yes, we accept that it does in fact line up. So now we ask, since it lines up, so why is Rav stating as a new opinion, as if he just made it up? Why didn't he just say halacha is like Rabbanan? And how come Shemuel doesn't say halacha is like Rabbi? Why is he saying like a new halacha? And the answer is Siricha. No, they had to say it as an independent halacha because they're talking about Kiddushin, whereas the Tanaim are talking about Gitin. And I might have thought that there's a difference between them. Dilo marav halacha kerabanan havamina hatam lachuka kate aval hachade lekarube kate ema modeh le Shmuel ditana'a havai. If Rav would have said halacha is like Rabbanan, that in the case of get, when you say from now and after death, then it's a safek. I might have thought in that case where he is trying to send her away, that's why it's a safek. We're not sure what he meant. But if it's a case of Kiddushin, when he's trying to bring her near, he may very well agree with Shemuel that it's a Tanai, and he wants a Tanai to be fulfilled as soon as possible. And so that's why he's saying, from now, retroactively, I want to give myself 30 days to think about it, but if it does happen, I want it to happen from now. So he might have thought that maybe Rav thinks that halacha is like Rabbanan for get, but for Kiddushin, it might be like Shemuel. So that's why Rav has to say, For Kiddushin, I think she's in limbo forever. And opposite, Iyamash Shemuel halacha kerebi, hava amina hatam hu de'en get lachar mita, hava halacha de'yesh Kiddushin la'achar shiloshim, ema modeh le'erav siricha. If Shemuel said, halacha is like Rabbi, that's regarding a get, that it works retroactively, I might have thought that maybe he only agrees with Rabbi regarding a get, because there is no such thing as a get after death. And so for sure he meant that this get should work retroactively from now. And that's why halacha is likely to be there, because it doesn't make sense to have a get afterwards. And so the get is a definite get. Once he dies, retroactively, it works from now. But regarding Kiddushin, it's perfectly valid to give Kiddushin after 30 days. So he might agree with Rav, because it makes sense to say either now or 30 days. And so maybe he changed his mind and said, first he said now. He says, no, forget it. I only want it to be in 30 days. So maybe we might think that he agrees with Rav if he only said halacha kerebi. And that's why Shmuel had to say, no, regarding Kiddushin also, I think it's the same thing, that it's definitely a Tanai, and he wants it to happen right away, if he doesn't change his mind within 30 days. But that's it. Once the 30 days passes, then it's definitely a good Kiddushin, just like Rabbi says it's definitely a good get. So now we understand why they each had to say their own formula, even though they do in fact match up to the Machloket Tanaim. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.